What is up, football fans, and welcome back to another episode of For Your Viewing Pleasure. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman, and this is it. This is the coup de grace. This is the Super Bowl week. We are here. We're not talking about Pro Bowl games, Wesley. What's going on?
Last game of the year, at least for a long time. So
Yeah,
we'll see what's going on. It's I mean, I guess it's we got chalk, right? This is two teams that a lot of people predicted all year would be right
you're
here,
right.
right now.
Now, let me ask you, do you do anything special for the Super Bowl, or do you just chill at home with family or anything like that?
We might end up doing something for this one. So generally, most Sundays I do watch games at home because I have multiple televisions set up where I can
Of course.
watch the Saints game on one TV and watch all the other games on another. But this is just one game, and
Yeah.
I don't really have to do a wrap-up show about it, and I don't really care if I hear what the announcers are talking about, or so maybe I don't know. I do want to hear the commercials though, so generally I watch them at home.
Yeah, last year was the first year I did a Super Bowl square for our family. So all the kids, got to sign their name on so many squares, and then we numbered them off, and it was fun. I think we gave away like some random stuff and some money for the final score and stuff. It was fun.
You're not going to be out on the grill talking about the game and recording shows for that.
No, I'm grilling Saturday, father-in-law's birthday, but no, not on Sunday. Sunday will be let's just eat early. Let's get that out of the way. We'll have some snacks for the game, and let's just sit down and watch some football, the last football game of the year. So I'm excited for this game. I'm dreading this game. There's way too many people that I work with that are Eagles fans, and I
Ugh.
can't. That's just I don't want to hear that if they win. I also don't want the Chiefs to win because we've just the three-peat. We could all go down all the narratives and stuff like that. What is your general thought about that heading into the game? Do you
Do,
find yourself rooting for one side or the other?
do good Eagles fans know that it's not just a few bad apples giving Eagles fans a
Oh,
bad rap, like that most Eagles fans are terrible?
yeah.
Okay, so the good
I,
ones know that they're the rare thing, not, oh, it's just a couple of bad ones that just make a lot of noise. Like, no, most of you suck.
I think a lot of Philly fans take pride in the fact that they
All right.
are nasty. They grow up hearing about at the vet them throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. Like, this is who we are. We've got to be giant turds all the time. Like, no, you really don't. You could actually be, you know, the Commanders fans that got
So
harassed leaving
ridiculous.
that it was a little much. Like, okay, you want to give them some, a jaw a little bit, but your team won. Like, it would be
Yeah.
different if the Commanders went into Philly and beat you, and then you're pissed. But I don't get it.
It's also one thing to like talk trash and be loud, like, but another thing to get physically in somebody's way or steal their hat
Yeah.
or like grow up.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. And then all the idiots filming it,
Yeah.
someone just smacked the phone out of their hands. But let's talk about football. What we're going to do is we're going to break this down from an advantage standpoint, and we want to give you, the listener, the best viewing experience possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about like the Chiefs offense versus the Eagles defense, and we're going to flip the script and do the other way, talk about special teams, and try to give you a good glimpse as to what we think could be happening, who has the advantage. That way, when you're watching the game on Sunday, if it plays out the way that we have predicted it will, maybe you'll say, hey, these guys were right all along. So, Wesley, let's start off with the Chiefs offense versus the Eagles defense. I think it's a very intriguing matchup. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. But the weapons that they have, whether you're talking about DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, I feel like the Eagles defensively match up well with them, especially on the defensive front, slowing down Kareem Hunt and or Isaiah Pacheco. What do you think? Who do you give the advantage to in this regard?
So yeah, it's one of those weird things where I think the Chiefs have a good offensive line. I think the Chiefs have the best offensive line of the two teams, but I think the Eagles have the best defensive line and linebackers of the two teams.
So you'll
So
take the Chiefs O line over the Eagles. That's surprising to me. I think the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league.
you do.
I do.
Yeah,
If they're healthy, like I'm not sure the status of, they had the guard. Landon Dickerson was flexed into center in the NFC Championship game, but he's normally a guard, and their
yeah.
center's been banged up. If they're all healthy,
I think the Dickerson Jurgens thing probably, them both being injured, probably skews it for me. But I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes faced like one of the lowest pressure rates in history of the game. Like,
yeah.
so I mean, I don't know. It's, but I mean, some of that's him. He gets the ball out fast too.
They're very
So
good on the interior. Their tackles are not so great, but their interior is very
they
good.
are. Offense versus defense, though, big picture. I mean, I'm not gonna not give the credit to the Chiefs' offense. and just they've got Patrick Mahomes, and we're not talking about a whole season. We're talking about one game right now, and it's hard to bet against. Andy Reid is he's got plays. He's been waiting all year for this game. He's going to be aggressive on third and fourth down, and I'll give the credit there to the Patrick Mahomes and what he brings to the game.
I'm going to lean on something that Coach Kevin Smith said on our NFL round, and it was about Vic Fangio's zone scheme on defense. They do have a very good zone defense, but Patrick Mahomes historically tears up zone defenses because he's so smart. Andy Reid is a very good coach. He coaches them up as to where to go when they go into zone coverage. And will Vic Fangio be willing to abandon what he likes to do the most if it means it's going to give his team an advantage? You would think in the Super Bowl you will. So this is kind of a chess match. Who's going to have the upper hand? It's tough not to go with the better quarterback. It's tough not to say, well, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes here because he will shred his own defense. He's got the people to do it. Travis Kelce is not the field stretcher he maybe once was in terms of athleticism, but he does know how to eat up.
He's going to get open.
Exactly.
He's going to be available.
Yeah, and they're going to do those rub routes across the middle, and they're going to have Xavier Worthy in open space. As much as I like Philly's defense, and if Dean was still still healthy at the inside linebacker position, and maybe Nakobe Dean, I would maybe think that it's a little bit better, a little bit closer. I got to give the advantage to Kansas City though, because of Patrick Mahomes. He's just that good.
Yeah, I think for me, the overall through most of this, I think the Eagles have the better roster by not even close. I think it's pretty dominant. But when you compare the two quarterbacks, the most important position in the game, I think it's heavily skewed in the Chiefs' favor, which throws a lot of this off. If they had two comparable quarterbacks, this whole game looks a lot different. And I think our whole discussion here would look a lot different.
All right, so in the first half, we said advantage Kansas City in terms of their offense versus the Eagles' defense. So now let's flip it. Let's do the other side of the coin. The Eagles' offense and Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, that offensive line we alluded to, versus a very stout and I think underrated, and I can't believe I said that, the Chiefs' defense was very good all year. They just never got the credit because, well, they don't have the Patrick Mahomes. Chris Jones is fantastic. They've got playmakers at all levels, good secondary. This is interesting. I'm curious which way you're going to go here in terms of advantage.
Well, Steve Spagnuolo might be the best position coach in this matchup as far as you telling him 1 week, one thing. You got 2 weeks to prepare. You got one thing to do. He might be one of the best in football as far as trying to take that away. And out of this game, probably the best. The problem is I think that he's got like the most impossible task of any coach is there a game plan that eliminates Saquon Barkley? I mean, there hasn't been this year.
Yeah.
I mean, and where I'll say that I think Patrick Mahomes is, the best player in this game or the best player at the best position, all that stuff. Patrick Mahomes is not throwing for 500 yards in this game. Not a chance. Saquon Barkley might run for 225.
Right.
I mean, if we're just comparing who could have the biggest performance in this game, I don't know if I want to call Saquon the best player in the game, but I'm kind of leaning that way. Like he could be. And so I just think that where we just came out of saying that, the Eagles have a good defense and their linebackers and defensive line, but Patrick Mahomes is the X factor that eliminates all that. I think Saquon Barkley's the same thing for the Eagles. I like what the Chiefs have done. The Chiefs have 2 straight years now of being an incredible defense, really good. And Steve Spagnuolo is great, but Saquon Barkley gets it's so skewed. And they're like, it's easy for me to say, oh, you got one job, stop Saquon Barkley, and then the Eagles might fall apart, but you can't do it. And so I'm going to give the advantage to the Eagles because it's the best player in this matchup of offense versus defense again, skews in their favor. What do you think? Can Steve Spagnuolo put together a game plan that slows down, keeps Barkley under 115?
I think there is. I think there is, but I want to talk about Spagnuolo quickly before I go into those numbers because there was a team that did throw everything at stopping Saquon Barkley and still lost. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm very familiar with them, by the way. So Steve Spagnuolo, go back to the 4th down play against Buffalo in the AFC Championship. don't think Josh Allen didn't have a good idea as to what Spagnuolo was going to do. All right, they're going to drop into this coverage. And what does he do? He sends a corner blitz. And so Josh Allen's like, what the hell? He's sending pressure off the edge, and it flushes him out of the pocket. He has to throw up a prayer to Dalton Kincaid, which falls incomplete. That's what Steve Spagnuolo does. And so that's where I'm curious, will Jalen Hurts be able to adapt if it's called on him to make the play? Because Spagnuolo is going to do things that you aren't expecting. Now, like I said, there was a team in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh did this when they lost 27-13 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Mike Tomlin essentially said, listen, anyone can beat us but Saquon Barkley. In that game, they held Saquon Barkley on 19 carries to 65 yards, a 3.4 yard
half. Yeah. Crazy.
And he had a 22-yard long run at that. Okay. So they said anyone will beat us. Well, guess who did? Jalen Hurts rushed for 45 yards on 15 carries. He also threw for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they did a good job pressuring him. He had a rating of one. They did not. I'm sorry. He had 3 sacks, but 125.3 rating. AJ Brown went off for 110. Devontae Smith went off for 109. That's what the Eagles are going to have to do, because if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I'm taking the approach of Saquon Barkley is not going to do this to us. We're going to do whatever we can to force the game into Jalen Hurts' hands. And the question is, can Jalen Hurts do what he did against Pittsburgh and not just use his athleticism and his legs, but can he have receivers over 100 yards receiving? Can he not turn it over? Can he not take the bad sack? If I'm a betting man, in terms of if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I would bet my house that that's the way we're going to attack him. If I'm going to lose, it's going to be with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball. It's not going to be Saquon Barkley running it. And so it has been done, but at the same time, that's what I'm doing. If I'm Steve Spagnuolo, you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of both sides of that is you could perfectly execute the exact same game plan that the Steelers did in that game, and he could still run for 200 yards.
Oh, he could, for sure.
Because he did it. He did it this year. So, I mean, they weren't the only team that tried to do that. I definitely think you have to try to do that, and you put it in Jalen Hurts. And this was, I have not looked at the numbers at all, but I have to imagine this was the best game of Jalen Hurts' season this year. And also, additionally, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both went over 100 yards receiving and both got a touchdown in that game. So it was the rest of the Eagles' offense just completely flexed on the Steelers.
We don't need to go into details. Okay,
on whatever team that was. But I'm with you. I've got to at least try to sell out to that, and then, put it on Jalen Hurts to have the best or second best game of the season for himself. You definitely put that pressure on him. Now, there is a chance, depending on how you sell out to stop Saquon, then Jalen Hurts can run for 125 yards too. So it's there's definitely a lot to look into. If you're talking about, the Eagles do have multiple receivers that can get down the field. If you're bringing safeties up to try to stop him, you don't get to the quarterback, they're going to have shots downfield. But there might be a smart game plan for the Eagles to just work towards the boundaries. If everybody's kind of cramping into the middle, of just work short passes to the boundaries, getting 6-7 yards a catch for a long time, and then see what adjustments are made. But I don't know, there's different ways the Eagles can go about this. And they have an incredible offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, who's at the top of everybody's lists for future head coach possibilities. I'm not sure if he's going to get an opportunity quite yet in this young career, but this would be a great opportunity for Kellen Moore to show how he could lead a team to victory.
For your sake, I hope that they don't fall completely flat on their face in the Super Bowl and just get shellacked, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the Saints' next coach. he's
better than the roster. He'll be fine.
Okay, there you go. So I'm going to give the advantage to the Eagles as well. So this is interesting because now we have the advantage Kansas City offense, advantage Philadelphia offense. Special teams is interesting. Normally, special teams, you kind of just throw your hands up and say, it is what it is. But Jake Elliott sucks. And because Jake Elliott sucks, and Harrison Butker, whether you love him for his politics or his thoughts about your personal life, his personal life, whatever, he's a more reliable kicker. And they're playing in a dome. They're in New Orleans. So I've got to give the advantage to Kansas City here. because I don't trust Jake Elliott to make an extra point, let alone a long field goal, if it means the game's on the line. You agree or disagree?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about one for two teams that we're giving the benefit or the advantage to the offense versus the defenses. 48.5 points isn't crazy. Now it's decent for a Super Bowl, but for an NFL game, especially what we watched the last few weeks of the playoffs, 48.5 is not crazy points. And you're talking about a 1.5 point Kansas City Chiefs favor right now. Yeah, this should be a close game regardless of what happens. And those kickers are going to matter. I think and we've got both teams that are their coaches are aggressive with going for it on fourth down or long third downs and not just succumbing to punts and field goal attempts. Andy Reid is kind of lauded for his because he's he gets the first down a lot of times.
Yeah.
And Sirianni's kind of a knucklehead who does it in the weirdest positions and gives away points. So
if I see either one of these teams talking about special teams, kick it into the landing zone and allow return, like fire the coordinator into the sun. Seriously, like the Chiefs have I don't even know the dude's name, but he's a little spark plug and he can give them good field position. He has some great returns in this postseason. Don't even risk it. Touchback every time. Like that's seriously what the approach should be for special teams. You brought up the total. You brought up the spread. Kansas City giving 1.5, the total of 48.5. We just both gave the advantage to the offense over the defense. I am thinking over. But the history says that a lot of times Super Bowls start off very slow as teams are kind of getting a feel for one another and they're trying to figure out what the defense is doing, et cetera, et cetera. Are you thinking over as well?
I'm thinking over.
Okay.
I think that I really see this game. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to plan on starting slow. I think the Chiefs have been here so much. They're going to be aggressive. I think they're going to want to get out and get ahead. I think that's going to make the Eagles, have to respond in kind. I think we have a first quarter with over 10 points, and then it just takes off from there.
Yeah. The Eagles shouldn't be intimidated by this moment either. They were here just a few years ago. So if anything, this should be a game where both teams are comfortable in the setting. They've been used to big games. They've played in big games for the last few years, including the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And I think this is an over game. I just think that these are two teams that have the weapons. They have the advantages we just outlined with the offenses. I think it's an over. Now, the question is now, who do you think is going to win and what might be a score prediction for you?
We didn't mention it in the over, but the Eagles did score 55 points in their last game. Just the same.
Well, but the Kansas City defense is not the Commanders.
They're not, but 55 is it's
55
in a playoff game is just a team that had won 2 playoff games. It's still
true.
Pretty ridiculous.
True.
And with they did it against Dan Quinn, who is a defensive head coach. So
that's true.
Man, it's I don't know if this is a hard game because I don't want either one of them to win. I'm tired of the Chiefs narrative, and I hate the Eagles. I never want the Eagles to win unless they're playing the Falcons or the Cowboys. Like besides that, like I just want the Eagles to lose to everybody always. But I have voiced on here how I feel about the narrative that Roger Goodell tells us doesn't exist, and the NFL does not want the Chiefs to win, and the referees do not want the Chiefs to win, and there's officiating's at an all-time high. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this. I think that Saquon Barkley is the big X factor here. I think that Patrick Mahomes, if it comes down to one drive at the end, can win the game. I think Saquon Barkley is the best right now in 2025 player in this game compared to the other people in the game. And I think there could be a huge game for him. And if there's not a huge game for him, everybody else in their offense is going to have a chance. What do you think, Jeff? I know you're not a fan of neither team necessarily.
No,
I'm kind of in the same boat. But what do you actually think is going to happen?
Well, what's really interesting is you look at the betting numbers for this game. Even yesterday, the money line for the Eagles was plus odds. Now it's even. So it's even odds. And so everything else is negative odds here. You don't have any plays that are plus odds. You have Philly plus 1.5. It's minus 115. You want to take the Chiefs giving 1.5. It's minus 105. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. No plus odds here at all. I don't like that as a bettor, but still, I think that for me, it's going to come down to, and this could be with both sides of the docket, which team makes the mistake. Now, you would think that that's going to be Jalen Hurts is going to make the mistake.
Or their coach.
Yes.
Sirianni.
I still swear he's like a fan that got he won a sweepstakes to be the coach of the Eagles. But anyways, maybe it's their coach. But which team's going to make? Patrick Mahomes has made mistakes this year. That he has turned the ball over more than you would think. And even in the postseason, there was like the botched read option play. Which team is going to make that mistake and which team is going to capitalize on it? There's something about this Eagles team. I think they win it. I hope Saquon Barkley wins it because I like Saquon Barkley. I liked him coming out of Penn State. I thought he was in a horrible position in New York. He was. He goes to Philadelphia. He actually gets a line to block for him, people that believe in him. And I hope he sticks it to the Giants because, well, it's you saw the Hard Knock stuff. I'm going to take the Eagles. I'd take them on the money line. If you can still get plus odds there, take them on the money line. It's 1.5 points. I think they win by more than that anyways. I think, though, and I don't know if I'm sure that you could bet on this as a prop. You think this one goes to extra? You think it goes to overtime?
No, I don't. If it does, then I don't think the Eagles win.
Yeah, I mean, it would be entertaining. I do agree with you, though, when you talked about how, like, Roger Goodell comes out and talks about the NFL officiating. It shouldn't be a factor. And then Travis Kelce at media days, they said, if you could ask the media anything, what would it be? And he said, why are you all pushing this narrative so much? Are you blind? Like, are you serious? Are you that tone deaf that you don't know what's actually happening in your games? Maybe he is. I don't know. But still, I'll take the Eagles as well, which probably means the Chiefs are going to win, which sucks. And so there you have it. Any other final thoughts?
Well, you mentioned the Mahomes and what he's done this year. So in the regular season, he had 26 touchdowns and 11 interceptions and was sacked 36 times. And then also in his one playoff game, he was sacked 5 times.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of happens. It's there is an opportunity for him to make a mistake.
There's some great coaching in this game. On both sides. Like when you talk about Kellen Moore, you talk about Andy Reid, you talk about Spagnuolo, you talk about Vic Fangio, really good coaching. And so I'm really curious to see which team has a wrinkle that the other one isn't expecting that could be a game-changing play. But I want to ask you this real quick because you're a Saints fan. And we all assume that Kellen Moore is going to be named the Saints head coach once the season is officially over.
Yep.
Do you think, this was brought up on our NFL Whip Around podcast yesterday, do you think that Kellen Moore, he knows it, they've probably told him, he's probably already starting to think about his staff and what he wants to do once he gets
the rumor is he has contacted people to start putting his staff together.
Totally believe that.
In case he gets a job that cannot be offered to him until after the Super Bowl.
But do you think that would be a distraction as the Eagles offensive coordinator? Like, yeah, you could compartmentalize, but man, you got to be thinking about it's your first shot as being a head coach. What are your thoughts on that?
So, yeah, I think that if I was a Eagles fan and hadn't killed myself by now, I would be pissed about it and the distraction and all. Having said that, like I could see the other side of this is Kellen Moore, and I think there's a part to kind of a cockiness and ego and belief in yourself and confidence. Him going into this game with an all-time high about himself and what he can do, and like being in the zone on play calling and wanting to go out with us being a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator, and seeing what that's like. So I can see both sides of it. Do I think that it actually makes a difference? No. Do I think that when you know that the Super Bowl is 2 weeks away, do you need to spend 17 hours a day for 14 straight days just game planning Super Bowl? No.
Yes.
It could be just fine.
So, well, we'll look forward to it. And we will be back next week, even though we're not going to be previewing any games. We're going to recap the Super Bowl, give you our thoughts on all that stuff. Should be fun. And then, and then that'll do it for this season. It's hard to believe it's over, but let us know where you can get your Saints coverage and where they can find you on social media, Wesley.
Yeah, you can find all my Kellen Moore coverage on the Dome Patrol podcast. You can find us on X at Dome Patrol PCast. You can talk to me about Saints, Mavericks, and LSU at Wesley 13 on X. How about
Hey,
you, Jeff? Where can we find you?
The Mavericks, have they been in the news recently? I don't remember.
I
Okay.
don't think so. No.
You can find our Run It Back Steelers coverage at the Steel Curtain Network. You can check us out at steelcurtainnetwork.com. If you want to find me on social media at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. But that does it, man. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll talk next week, Wesley. Take it easy.
See you, man. Is it called